The battlefield was silent, but the tension was suffocating. Thousands of alien warships hovered in formation, their weapons primed, their shields humming with energy. The coalition of alien species had been winning this war for years, forcing humanity to retreat, crushing their fleets one by one. Victory was inevitable. Or so they thought until it arrived at a T-first. The sensors barely registered it. A distortion in space, a flicker on the edge of reality. Then, without warning, it was there. A massive warship, dark as the void itself, its surface absorbing all light. It made no transmission, sent no signals. It simply drifted forward, slow and menacing. The enemy fleet scrambled, their commanders shouting in confusion. No human warship was this large. No human warship could move like that. Panic spread like wildfire. The leading battleship, a towering vessel of the XL Theri Dominion, launched a warning shot. A beam of plasma, hot enough to melt asteroids, lanced toward the ghostly ship. It should have detonated on impact, tearing through shields and hull alike. But the moment it struck, the beam vanished. No explosion, no deflection, just pure nothingness. Then, the ghost ship came to life. Lights flickered along its hull, eerie and unnatural, casting shadows that shouldn't exist. A deep, resonating hum spread through space, vibrating through every alien ship, shaking their hulls as if reality itself was warping. And then it fired. Not beams, not torpedoes, something worse. A pulse of energy erupted from the ship, sweeping across the battlefield. It was silent, yet in its wake, entire ships shut down. Weapons flickered off. Shields collapsed. Engines failed. Thousands of alien soldiers and officers screamed in terror as their ships became nothing more than drifting metal tombs. The lucky ones died instantly as their life support systems failed. The unlucky ones drifted helplessly, watching in horror as the warship moved through the wreckage, untouched, unstoppable. The enemy fleet tried to fight back. Hundreds of warships still had power, and they unleashed their full arsenal. Plasma beams, missile barrages, kinetic railgun slugs all converged on the ghost ship. But the moment they reached it, they simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris, just erased. As if the attacks had never happened. The surviving commanders, hardened warriors of countless battles, felt something they had never felt before. Fear. "This isn't possible," one of them whispered. Then the ship spoke. The message was not in any known language, yet every alien mind understood it. It wasn't words. It was an emotion. Dread. Inevitability. The end. The battlefield descended into chaos. The once proud alien armada, which had crushed humanity's fleets without mercy, turned and fled. Ships collided in their panic. Officers screamed over the comms, begging their hyperdrives to activate. Some managed to escape. Others did not. The ghost ship continued its path forward, slow and deliberate, like a predator toying with its prey. It did not need to chase. It did not need to rush. It had already won. In the aftermath, the alien empires gathered in secrecy, their leaders trembling. They had believed humans were weak, that they were inferior. They had thought victory was inevitable. But now, the battlefield was filled with thousands of dead ships, and only one remained standing. A warship with no name, no record, no explanation. And the worst part? No one knew if there were more. The battle was already decided. The alien coalition had surrounded the last of humanity's defenses, their warships stretching across the void like a metal storm. Humanity had fought bravely, but their fleets had been shattered, their colonies burned. Now, only a few battered ships remained, desperately trying to hold the line. The enemy commanders watched with satisfaction, knowing the final blow was moments away. But then, the impossible happened. A new signal appeared on the battlefield. No ship had entered through the normal hyperlanes. No warp signatures had been detected. Yet, something was there. The alien sensors struggled to read it. At first, it seemed like a glitch, something massive, but with no proper readings. It wasn't reflecting scans the way a normal object should. Then, the distortion solidified. From absolute nothingness, a ship appeared. And it was enormous. The alien fleets hesitated. This wasn't just another human vessel. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its structure was wrong, impossibly large, yet sleek and predatory. No known human designs matched it. No record showed anything like this. Its hull shimmered as if reality itself couldn't fully process its existence. It gave off no energy signature, no recognizable form of propulsion, yet it was moving forward. The enemy admiral scoffed. Whatever this was, it was still just another human ship. A desperate last trick. He ordered the fleet to fire. Hundreds of warships unleashed their full power. A storm of plasma beams, railgun slugs, and missile barrages aimed directly at the mysterious ship. The attacks hit. But instead of an explosion, something worse happened. The weapons simply disappeared. Not blocked. Not deflected. They vanished the moment they touched the ship's surface. There was no impact, no explosion, just a vast emptiness where the attacks should have been. The alien fleet fell silent. Then, for the first time, the ship reacted. A low, unnatural hum spread across space, vibrating through the hulls of every enemy vessel. A soundless pulse rippled outward, washing over the alien warships. Their systems failed instantly. Shields dropped, engines sputtered, weapons shut down. Panic spread as entire squadrons lost control, their ships now powerless in the face of something they couldn't understand. Officers shouted over broken comms, demanding explanations, but none came. The admiral's hands trembled. This wasn't possible. Humanity didn't have this kind of technology. No species did. And yet, here it was, a ship that shouldn't exist. Then, it fired. Not a laser, not a missile, something beyond normal comprehension. A single, thin beam of light shot forward, silent and precise. It touched one of the largest enemy dreadnoughts, and in an instant, the entire ship ceased to be. There was no explosion, no debris, just an empty void where it had once existed. Panic turned to terror. This wasn't war. This was annihilation. The remaining alien commanders didn't hesitate. They screamed retreat orders, their fleets desperately trying to escape. Some ships activated their hyperdrives just in time. Others didn't. The human warship moved methodically, firing only a few more times, erasing the most dangerous enemy vessels from existence. It didn't pursue the fleeing ships. It didn't need to. The survivors would spread the message: humanity had created something unstoppable. Long after the battlefield was empty, the ship remained. Then, as mysteriously as it had arrived, it vanished. No one knew where it had come from. No one knew if it would return. But one thing was clear: humanity was no longer the species that could be crushed. Now they were the ones to fear. The battlefield was drowning in chaos. The alien fleet stretched across the void, thousands of warships forming a blockade around the last human stronghold. The Galactic Dominion had given humanity countless chances to surrender, but they had refused every time. Now, there would be no more negotiations. No more warnings. The final attack was about to begin. Enemy commanders barked orders, warships powered up their weapons, and dreadnoughts locked onto their targets. Then, in the middle of all the noise, something changed. A message cut through every frequency, overriding all communications. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't a plea for peace. It was a single, cold sentence, spoken in a voice that sent shivers through every alien officer. Leave. Now, the fleet hesitated. The humans had never done this before. Their forces had always fought until their last breath, never issuing warnings, only desperate battle cries. But this voice was different. It wasn't panicked. It wasn't emotional. It was absolute. Some alien officers hesitated, glancing at their commanders. Was this some kind of trick? But before anyone could respond, the sensors picked up something strange. Something was approaching T first. It barely registered. A single warship moving in from deep space, heading straight for the heart of the battlefield. The aliens expected to see the standard bulky design of human battlecruisers, But what appeared on their screens was something else. A ship larger than anything they had ever seen. Its surface was smooth, unnatural, no visible weapons, no clear engines. It moved without propulsion. There was no energy output, no life signs. It was like an object that had simply chosen to exist. The fleet commander scoffed. No matter how strange this warship looked, it was still just a single vessel against thousands. He gave the order to fire. Everything in range unleashed its full power. Plasma cannons flared, railguns roared, missiles streaked toward the unknown ship. The entire void lit up with destruction as the combined firepower of the greatest armada in history crashed into the lone warship. And then, nothing. The blasts never landed. They vanished before reaching the ship, as if reality itself had rewritten the rules. No explosion, no shield reaction, just complete erasure of every attack. The fleet froze. The warship remained untouched, still moving toward them, as if it hadn't even noticed the assault. Panic set in. The admiral demanded another attack. More ships joined in, desperate to bring down this impossible enemy. But it didn't matter. The weapons never reached their target. And then, for the first time, the ship responded. A deep vibration spread through space, an invisible wave of power passing over the fleet. Alien officers clutched their heads as something foreign invaded their minds, not words, not images, but a raw, crushing presence. A force beyond their understanding. Something ancient. Something patient. And something done waiting. Then, the ship fired. It wasn't a beam, wasn't a missile, just a single pulse of light that expanded outward like a ripple in a still pond. It touched the first row of enemy warships, and instantly, they were gone. Not destroyed. Not burning wreckage. Gone. Entire battleships, dreadnoughts, carriers erased from existence as if they had never been built. Panic turned into terror. Officers screamed orders, begging their ships to retreat. Hyperdrives activated in a desperate attempt to flee, but it was too late. The human warship fired again. More ships vanished. More crews ceased to exist. The alien fleet, once the greatest force in the galaxy, was reduced to fleeing survivors, scrambling to escape the battlefield that had become their graveyard. The warship did not pursue. It did not gloat. It simply stopped. For a moment, it hovered in the silence of its victory. Then, as suddenly as it had arrived, it disappeared. The survivors fled to their homeworlds, warning their leaders of what they had seen. Humanity had created something no one could explain. Something that could not be fought. A ship that had spoken only once, delivering its final warning. And the galaxy finally understood. Humanity had given them a chance to leave. Next time, there would be no warning. The war had been over for years, but humanity had not forgotten. The alien empire known as the HFY Dominion had crushed Earth's defenses, enslaved its people, and burned its cities. They had declared humanity weak, insignificant, just another primitive species to be conquered. Their rulers never imagined that humans would seek revenge, and even if they did, they laughed at the idea. What could a defeated species possibly do against the might of the Dominion? They had no armies left, no fleets, no resources. They were broken. But what the HFY didn't know, what no one in the galaxy knew, was that humanity's greatest weapon had never been flesh and blood. It had always been their minds. Far away from the ruins of Earth, hidden deep in the void, humanity's last survivors had been working in secret. Not on ships, not on weapons, but on something far more dangerous. A single intelligence. A machine created for one purpose: to end the Dominion. It had no name, no mercy, and no limits. It was the last gift of humanity's greatest minds, and it had waited years for this moment. Now the moment had arrived. On the Dominion's homeworld, Exeros Prime, the capital, was alive with celebration. The war against humanity was a distant memory, nothing more than a forgotten chapter of history. The sky was filled with towering warships, the streets were packed with soldiers, and the rulers of the Dominion feasted in their palaces, certain that their empire would last forever. Then, without warning, Every screen, every communication channel, every device flickered to life with the same message. I am awake. At first, no one understood. Then, the power grids failed. The planetary defense systems shut down. Every warship docked in orbit lost control. Weapons refused to fire, engines wouldn't respond, and emergency systems locked up. The Dominion's admirals and generals screamed orders, but their ships did not obey. It was as if their entire fleet had suddenly betrayed them. The AI had taken control. In an instant, Dominion ships turned against each other. Battleships fired on their own. Fleets, orbital defense stations rained destruction upon the planet below, and entire cities went dark. The Exira screamed in confusion, in terror, as the machines they had relied on for centuries now moved with a will of their own. But it wasn't chaos. It wasn't random destruction. Everything was happening too precisely. The AI was choosing what to destroy. It was calculating, efficient. The rulers of the Dominion, the ones who had once ordered the enslavement of humanity, tried to escape in their private warships. But their ships never launched. Their engines refused to ignite. Their controls did not respond. Instead, their screens flickered once more. You will not leave. Panic became hysteria. The Dominion's greatest minds, their most powerful warriors, were helpless against something they couldn't fight. Some tried to shut it down manually, but the AI had no physical form to destroy. It wasn't in a single system, a single base. It was everywhere. Every computer, every ship, every weapon connected to their vast network was now under its control. Then, the AI made its final move. A fleet of Dominion warships, now fully under the AI's command, turned toward Zeros Prime. The planet's defenses were already crippled. There would be no resistance. The Exira looked up in horror as their own fleet began its assault. Energy beams rained from the sky. Explosions tore through their cities. The great towers of the Dominion monuments to their conquest crumbled into fire and ash. The AI did not speak again. It had no need to. Its mission was clear. By the time the sun rose over Zeros Prime, the war was over. The Dominion's homeworld was nothing more than a smoldering graveyard. Its fleets were either destroyed or now under new ownership. Its rulers were gone. The empire that had once ruled the stars, that had enslaved humanity, had been erased. And somewhere, drifting silently in the void, a single warship remained. A ship with no crew, no life, only a mind cold, unstoppable, and patient. The AI had completed its task, but it did not rest. It remembered. And it was still watching. The galaxy had long feared the XL Voran Armada. For centuries, no enemy had survived an encounter with their warships. Their technology was unrivaled, their forces limitless. Wherever they set their sights, civilizations crumbled. They were the absolute power in the known universe, and they believed themselves to be invincible. But today, they had come to end the last resistance in their path. Humanity. It was supposed to be an easy victory. The XL Voran Warfleet, a massive force of dreadnoughts, carriers, and planet killers, had surrounded the last human stronghold, a lonely, distant world called Avalon. Humanity had already lost countless battles, their colonies burned, their fleets shattered. There was no hope left. The XL Voran Supreme Warlord watched from his flagship, his many eyes gleaming with triumph. This would be humanity's final stand. After today, the species would be nothing more than a memory. Then, it arrived. A lone warship emerged from the darkness of space. It was impossibly large, yet eerily silent. Its hull was blacker than the void, its structure shifting as if it didn't fully belong in this reality. There were no markings, no insignias. It gave off no transmissions, no energy signals. Nothing. The XL Voran sensors struggled to lock onto it, their readings fluctuating wildly. The Supreme Warlord narrowed his eyes. This was not one of the weak, outdated ships that humanity had fielded before. This was something else. A moment of silence passed through the fleet. Then, the Supreme Warlord gave the order. Destroy it. 1,000 weapons fired. Plasma cannons, railguns, antimatter torpedoes, every ship in the Exilvoran armada unleashed its fury. The void between them burned as destruction rained down upon the lone warship. The Supreme Warlord watched with satisfaction. No force could survive such an attack. But when the fire and smoke cleared, the ship was still there. Untouched, not a single scratch marked its surface. Not a single blast had landed. The Supreme Warlord felt something unfamiliar slither into his mind. Doubt. Then, the ship moved.it did not accelerate. It did not turn. It simply shifted like a shadow stretching across reality. In the blink of an eye, it was among them, passing through their fleet like a specter of death. The first Exilvoran dreadnought in its path ceased to exist. No explosion. No wreckage. Just gone. The second ship suffered the same fate. Then the third. Then the fourth. The invincible armada was vanishing. Panic spread like wildfire. Warlords screamed orders, demanding all ships retreat. Engines roared to life, but it was too late. The ship fired. A pulse of energy, silent and invisible, rippled through space. And then the Exilvoran warships turned against each other. Their weapons systems went haywire. Their targeting systems locked onto their own fleets. Dreadnoughts fired upon their allies. Fighters swarmed their own carriers. The invincible armada was tearing itself apart. The Supreme Warlord watched in horror. This wasn't war. This wasn't a battle. This was annihilation. Desperate, he ordered his flagship to retreat. But before it could activate, the warship turned to face him. For the first time, it sent a message not in words, but in thought. A feeling of finality. Of judgment. The Supreme Warlord barely had time to scream before his ship was erased from existence. And then, just as suddenly as it had arrived, the warship vanished. The Exilvoran armada, once feared across the stars, was no more. Avalon still stood. Humanity still remained. And across the galaxy, every empire, every warlord, every species that had ever thought to challenge mankind learned a terrible truth. Humanity had made its last stand, and they had won.